Just be advised, I guess there's a TFR going into effect. Just pass it on to the Southwest and everybody else. At 0630 for the next 10 days, we're stopped, all ground stopped.
Okay, ground stopped at 0630 for how long?
10 days.
So the airport's totally closed?
Apparently, we just got informed about 30 minutes to an hour ago.
So for 10 days, you guys are not open?
Well, I mean, we'll be here, but no air traffic.
All right, bettors, breaking news here. Patrick with Vetted. All right, let's jump into this because apparently in Texas, something that hasn't happened since 9/11 just happened. All right, they have shut down the airspace around El Paso, right, the Mexico and American border for 10 days, not allowing any flights whatsoever. And everyone is talking about this and wondering what the heck is going on. And of course, there are some UFO connections and conspiracies. So let's jump into this and find out exactly what's going on. This is what CNN is saying.
Breaking out of El Paso, Texas, where in a rare move, the airspace is now closed for 10 days. The FAA is halting all flights to and from El Paso International, citing, quote, special security reasons. It's a move that even shocked flight crews when they heard.
So El Paso is going to be shut down to air traffic for security reasons.
Do you know if there's any exceptions for medevac status?
That's a great question. There are no exceptions. It's a complete ground stop. And it's a complete ground stop. Not even medevacs are allowed to fly.
Wow.
And again, this hasn't happened since 9/11, right? And that was a catastrophe that struck, right, in New York City. And I remember that day. They shut down aircraft across the entire nation, except for Air Force One, of course, and maybe a few other craft. But this is interesting, right? Because there are some military bases nearby, but even there are military operations that are like confused on what to do. No medevac, if you broke your arm out in the desert and they're supposed to come get you, or you broke your neck or something, you're screwed, right? This is interesting. And there was no warning. That's what makes this so kind of scary, right? There was zero warning of this happening. Now, there are some clues as to what exactly is going on. But of course, there are some, this is a UFO channel. There are some UFO connections, and we'll get to that. But this is also what Fox News is saying.
The FAA is halting all flights to and from El Paso, Texas for 10 days for unspecified special security reasons. And they're warning that any pilots who don't comply, quote, may be intercepted, detained, and interviewed by law enforcement. El Paso Airport confirming the news in a statement, saying in part the FAA on short notice issued a temporary flight restriction halting all flights to and from El Paso. Commercial airlines operating out of El Paso are being informed of the restriction, which appears to be security related. Southwest, United, American, and Delta all operate flights there. And Fort Bliss Army Base is right next door.
All right. So now that we've heard all the different speculations about this, right, let's jump into what some of the possibilities may be of exactly what's going on. I asked Grok on Twitter, which is an AI, all right, if you're not familiar with it. And this is what it said. There could be border security operations against cartels or military strikes tied to Trump's anti-cartel stance. And honestly, that's a pretty good, possibility, considering that this article just came out. The United States intends to begin carrying out strikes against narco terrorists on land, Trump said. And basically, the article goes on to basically say that, they had to take care of those boats first, and then they would hit them on land, right, on U.S. soil, right, because then they wouldn't have the boats to go back to. Because essentially they're like, well, if we hit them on the land, they're just going to go back to the boats. So they hit the boats first, and now they're going to land. And I think this is a very strong possibility considering where this is happening. And you would do it with no notice, so you don't give the enemy, right, the cartel in this instance, any sort of, right, jumpstart, right, any way to prepare. So, boom, you put this 10-day no flight restriction in place. Right. And then, boom, you just carry out your operation for the next 10 days. Right. So I don't know. It's a strong possibility, though. Number 2, immigration enforcement and deportations near the border. All right, so this one I'm not so sure about. I mean, clearly, with all the ICE stuff happening in the United States, this could be something, but that's more up north. I don't know. This seems like an odd thing to do just in that particular area for flights, right? Like, what would you do that for, right? You could just enforce border security without that. So I don't know if that's entirely it. Number 3, military testing and GPS jamming at White Sands Missile Range. That's right. White Sands Missile Range is right there in that area, right? And they do a lot of testing out there. So could they be testing something extraordinary or just our own advanced tech, right? And they just like, well, we need to shut down this airspace so that we can do some testing. That seems kind of unusual to do something you haven't done since 9/11, right? This is unprecedented, right? What's happening. So I don't think that they're just carrying out normal tests. Now, if they were carrying out some sort of extraordinary test, that would be interesting. But then they haven't, sectioned off anything as far as people or there's no curfews in place. It's not like they're trying to keep people in their homes. They're just saying nothing in the air, right? So maybe they could be testing something so high up. I don't know. But I guess that is a possibility. The military testing something. Number 4, terrorism or drone threats from Mexico. Now, this is interesting, and I think this could be tied to the first one, the cartels and all of that, right? There's definitely a strong possibility of this and those being connected in some way, right? I actually could lean towards that, right? Just as a prosaic explanation. Doesn't mean there isn't something non-prosaic or anomalous happening here, but it makes me think that this is honestly kind of where we're at. But let me be clear, not that I think something is about to strike America or Americans, so I'm not trying to, put out any fear or anything. I think they're just taking a proactive approach, and so you do this unannounced. And it's a wide area, too, that this is happening, right? So, but it's not like I think that they think something's about to happen, so they're just clearing the air and not letting any, that sort of thing. I don't think that that's the case. But I guess at the end of the day, since we don't have any information, who knows? Number 5, international retaliation. Example, Iran, Cuba proxies. So this is kind of interesting, but if that were the case, this is an interesting place to shut down. I don't know how real that would be, right? We're worried about something from Iran or Cuba because there have been reports that we're about to start, quote, attacking Iran, right? Getting into a war there, right? But I don't know. This seems kind of unusual. But you never know, right? What we had with in 9/11 all went back to Saudi Arabia and the Middle East. So I guess it's a possibility. But again, without any information, it's kind of hard to tell. But I really think the cartel sort of explanation is where we're at, or at least something along those lines. Now, let's get to the fun one. Aliens or classified UFO activity. All right, so this is kind of interesting, right? Could it be aliens, classified UFO stuff? Possibly, but you just put this on everyone's radar, right? So that seems kind of unusual. This is typically supposed to be covert, special operations stuff that you wouldn't just let the whole world know that you're kind of getting into, right? If it was UFO stuff. Because typically this stuff happens and you don't find out about it till years later, if it's even true, right? So I don't know how real this is, but it's definitely something that people are talking about, of course, right? Because again, it's so unprecedented what happened. So look, let me know down in the comments what you think exactly is happening. And does it involve UFOs, aliens, right? There are some interesting connections. So let's get into it. Look, this is a pilot that's near the area, right, of what's happening. And this is a recording with air traffic control pilot kind of talking about, the shutdown.
Southwest 1249, are you guys supposed to fly out?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Southwest 1249, are you guys departing again tonight, or is this final flight in?
Nah, we're going to the hotel.
Roger. Just be advised, I guess there's a TFR going into effect. Just pass it on to the Southwest and everybody else. At 0630 for the next 10 days, we're stopped, all ground stopped.
Okay, ground stop to 0630 for how long?
10 days.
So the airport's totally closed?
Apparently, we just got informed about 30 minutes to an hour ago.
So for 10 days, you guys are not open.
Well, I mean, we'll be here, but no air traffic.
Okay, thanks for that heads up.
Cargo South 120 Heavy, it just says a security alert. TFR is going into effect at 0630 is all we're aware of. Yeah, it just goes into effect at 0630 till the 21st at 0630.
And I've seen a lot of, comments online from pilots saying this is unprecedented. This is so unusual. I've been flying, 30 years, this, that. Again, not since 9/11 has something like this happened. And again, 9/11 was the whole country, but this is definitely a huge part of the border with Texas and Mexico, right? Specifically around El Paso. And there's even been some people posting live streams from the, live feeds from the El Paso International Airport and suggesting that they're seeing sort of lights in the sky, right? So this could be UFOs or something that they're trying to we don't want anybody to see this, right? Here's a live feed right here. You can see it. And those lights, I looked into it. Those are just communication towers in the back. You can't see the little mountains that they're on. I mean, if you've ever been around El Paso, I'm a Texan, right? I know that area, and it definitely is hilly and mountainous, not like Rocky Mountains, but those are just communication towers, right? There, those lights don't move, right? They never will. This is kind of like the Marfa lights thing that happens out there. But anyway, people are speculating, of course, right, when something like this happens. And look, to be fair, when you don't give answers and you don't give explanations and you do something so, out there, people are going to speculate without any answers, right? So I don't blame them. But now look, there are some interesting connections happening, right? Because a report that just came out as well, I think really sums it up. Now, it could be just something to quiet everyone, an explanation to quiet everyone, or it could be the actual explanation because this report just dropped. All right, so a CNN reporter named Pete Muntian, I think is his name, I'm not sure how to pronounce that, wrote on Twitter, breaking, a source briefed by FAA tells me the El Paso flight ban was driven by military operations from Biggs Army Airfield at Fort Bliss. The FAA acted after the Defense Department could not assure civilian flight safety. All right, so as you can see there on the picture, you got Biggs right above El Paso International Airport. Very, very close, right? So that's interesting, right? Now, is this exactly what's happening? It's all right. It's a source. It's that. We don't know. And maybe they're saying, look, we can't have planes taken off, civilian planes taken off when we're trying to perform stuff and something could happen, right? So what exactly are they testing? Again, it makes me think it goes back to the cartel stuff, right? In a lot of ways. I mean, I guess it could be UFOs. I don't know, right? This is a UFO channel, so we can indulge that particular claim. But I do think it has to do with cartels and something along those lines. And it's 10 days, right? That's not a short amount of time. It's not one afternoon. This sounds like multiple operations, multiple tests. Something's happening clearly, right? Something very proactive. Now, they do mention Fort Bliss, right? And there is an interesting history with UFOs and Fort Bliss. Let's read about it. All right, so I asked Grok, same thing, okay, AI here, if you will, what it thought about this. So I basically just prompted it with Fort Bliss UFO links, right? And it wrote, Fort Bliss, a major U.S. Army installation in El Paso, Texas, has occasional ties to UFO discussions in ufology, conspiracy theories, and local sightings, mostly through historical claims, proximity to other sites, or misidentified military activity. And then it gives me a breakdown, right? So it says common misidentified sightings. Many UFO reports near Fort Bliss turn out to be routine military training. In 2020, mysterious lights orbs over El Paso were confirmed by Fort Bliss as artillery flares from exercises at the Doña Ana training ranges. Sure. I'm just kidding. That happens a lot with flares. Similar flare sightings have been debunked as training exercises multiple times. Yeah, there you go. See, a lot of people think that's what Phoenix Lights was, but you do have a lot of witness testimony. So I don't know. Is that really what's going on? And then some historical ufology claims. This is interesting. Goyame UFO incident from 1974. Okay, y'all. Often called Mexico's Roswell, a small plane from El Paso allegedly collided midair with a high-speed disc-shaped UFO near Coyame, Chihuahua, Mexico, near the border. So this is very much near there, right? Mexican soldiers reportedly died mysteriously at the site. Possible contamination. Sounds like the Varginha incident. U.S. teams from Fort Bliss allegedly crossed the border via helicopters, recovered the UFO under biohazard protocols, destroyed the area with explosives, and transported the craft, possibly to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base or elsewhere. Right? The story comes from UFO researchers like Noah Torres and Ruben Uriarte in their book Mexico's Roswell, based on witness accounts and intercepted communications. It's unverified officially, but persists in UFO lore. To be honest, I hadn't heard all that part of the story. So that's kind of interesting, right? And there's a direct connection to Fort Bliss. I don't know. Again, why would you announce this sort of 10-day shutdown if something like this was going to happen? That seems unusual, right? I don't know. There's also the Gary Irwin abduction case from 1959. Army Private Gary Irwin, stationed at Fort Bliss, reportedly had a bizarre experience while driving back from leave in Utah. He saw a crashing plane, actually a UFO, blacked out, and later suffered amnesia blackouts treated at Fort Bliss's psychiatric ward. Some interpret it as an abduction or covert operation. I hadn't heard that one. That's kind of interesting. Roswell connections. Here we go. Some fringe claims, right, in Philip Corso's The Day After Roswell suggest Roswell debris bodies went to Fort Bliss, incorrectly listed as 8th Army Air Force Headquarters, actually Fort Worth. So that's interesting. They're saying it actually went to Fort Bliss, not to Fort Worth. Official reports tie Roswell to Project Mogul balloons with no substantiated Fort Bliss link. Sure. Definitely wasn't balloons. Other minor reports include sightings like a large oval craft in 1966 near Fort Bliss Dunes, or a lighted object near the moon in 1959 by a base officer. Okay, see, there are some things going on. So I don't know, y'all. What do we think? This UFOs, they shut down the airspace for 10 days for testing UFOs or some sort of UFO activity. Or, let's just speculate here. Let's have a little fun. It could have been a crash. There could have been a crash, right? But then wouldn't they close off the city and all this sort of stuff too? I don't know, just the airspace, but there could have been a crash and they want to transport it, and they want to make sure nobody sees this thing up in the sky, right? I don't know. Could be possible. I'm always wondering, what about recent UFO crashes? Every time you hear of a UFO crash, it's like 20 years ago in 1974. It's always a long time ago. It's never just happened, right? You notice that? Right? It's very rare, right? Or when people go, no, a modern UFO crash, and then they're like, 1996, Varginha. That was 30 years ago. So I don't know. Is this the protocol they would take? Very interesting. But in my opinion, I do think it is just us trying to be proactive against cartels and that sort of thing. There is a precedent there. And clearly the close distance from Fort Bliss to the El Paso International Airport suggests that 10 days, a lot of stuff could happen, right? So just very interesting. Again, let me know what you think down in the comments, and we'll see you guys on the next one, Vedas. Remember, every day's a gift, y'all. Peace.
Hey, Patrick. This isn't really a question. This is something that happened to me and one of my friends when we were in middle school. It was probably 1988, and we were in Iowa in the middle of nowhere, and my friend Barry and his entire family was there. I was there with my sister, and we saw something flying that was with no sound, and it basically flew over us and over into a pasture where there was it looked like one of the not light poles, but the electrical poles that carry the cables. We were all looking at it, and it had a light on the top of it. The craft flew over the top of it, and all of a sudden it looked like it was sucking electricity out of it or something like that, like a complete beam of light went up into the craft, and then the light went out. All the electricity in that area, because we could see a ways away, it looked like all the electricity went out in that area like a transformer exploded. And then the craft flew back over us with no sound. And we really didn't talk about it or anything because, I don't know. Back then it wasn't something that, it was more like for scary stories, right? I walked away after 2 years of doing deep research on it thinking probably a government experiment. This was back in 88, maybe 87. But I walked away from it thinking a military experiment. Barry and his family walked away from it thinking that it was like an alien craft. I could not say that. All I know is it flew over the top of us, blocking out the stars, and it was not a large craft. It was maybe 40 or 50 feet long, because when it went over us, it went very quickly and with no sound. We could just see the stars being blotched out as it went over us. It didn't do any kind of rapid movement. It was moving fairly slow. So, okay, well, that's my story. My name's Avery. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.